Obscure. What is obscure? And why is it spelled so obscurely? Well, imagine a game version of the faculty, except without the aliens. And with less faculty, so they're actually nothing alike, and maybe it's just the late 90s high school atmosphere that makes me draw the comparison. Those grand yet outdated school halls bustling with snarky teens that wear their thongs high and their baggy pants low. This slice of Americana is all facade, however, because beneath these halls, a horror lurks. Something as old as it is enormous. Something that has grown tired of biding its time in the dark. During the incredibly hip intro where once Sum 41's Still Waiting played, we're introduced to our 5-star cast. As in, there are 5 of them, though that's not to detract from the efforts of the voice actors.
Hey, Josh, get out of our way!
But I've got to finish up my story on the basketball team for the paper.
Yo, dog, Kenny, chill out, man. Leave him alone. Come on, let's hit the showers.
I mean, they're really trying, and I admire that. Kenny hangs back to shoot a few more hoops. However, a mysterious figure takes this chance to steal his gym bag, fleeing to an abandoned annex of the campus. Kenny follows because his shirt lacks sleeves and thus he is compelled to do so by dude bro law. He soon stumbles upon a secret hatch that leads down into a creepy hidden cellar. Most would flee from such a confronting situation, but perhaps he is emboldened by the discovery of a nearby implement of educational persuasion. Braving the darkened basement, he discovers an imprisoned student.
What the hell is this place anyway?
But while attempting a daring rescue, they are beset upon by a hulking monstrosity, and before he can reach the exit, the hatch is sealed, leaving him to an uncertain fate. Kenny's failure to attend school the following day alarms his friend Josh, his girlfriend Ashley, and his sister Shannon.
Kenny's disappeared. Nobody's seen him since last night.
Thankfully, they take the obvious course of action and alert the authorities.
I think we'd better call the cops.
Of course not. They decide to stow themselves away in a lunchroom after the school is locked up for the night to investigate the disappearance. Because unlawful entry is only a minor offense, and these hellions don't play by the rules. The three are soon joined by the shady Stan, and these 4 together form our player party for most of the game.
You better quit jerking me.
Looks like we got ourselves into a real sticky situation.
You guys sure took your time.
You can only travel in pairs, controlling one character while the other assists by body blocking and wasting your ammo. But you can swap to and from your partner at any time, which comes in handy if you need help, provided they have any ammo. Your partner can also be controlled by a friend with drop-in shared screen co-op, though that would imply having friends and thus going outside. Items must be traded between party members as inventories aren't shared, and each member's health must be monitored closely, especially when playing solo, because strangely enough, this game has a permadeath system. If you or your partner die, they're dead for good, and if you both die, you'll immediately take control of the remaining survivors. It's a strange design choice, seeing as you can just load a previous save, but still an interesting idea, because each party member has their own unique skill they bring to the group. Some are useful, like Joel's ability to sense nearby items, such as keys, ammo, or health items, whereas Stan just picks locks faster than everybody else can. I'm mostly stuck with Joel and Shannon. Between Joel's item sensing and Shannon's prescient ability to give game progressing hints, I was able to make constant progress with ease. This is the only reason I use these two. Honest, it's strictly necessary for min-maxing. I really appreciate that you just vandalize doors to open them. And the same goes for the vending machines too, filled with health-replenishing, highly addictive and mood-altering energy drinks that are so good, the National Health Regulatory made them contraband. But the school board has more pressing things to worry about, like the decaying chicken monsters infesting the joint. These little nasties crawl out of the inky gloom, and while in small numbers they're no match for a big stick, in larger numbers you can quickly find yourself body-blocked and overwhelmed. Luckily, we meet our first member of the faculty, Professor Walden, who comes to rescue us from the chicken carcasses with a big metal stick. He also shows us that these shadow creatures are deathly sensitive to light, which I felt was a personal attack. But it's not just chickens suffering from emo-itis. Oh no, I think he's listening to American football. Luckily, we've since obtained an implement of extreme educational prejudice, and our shadow-enshrouded cohort have some studying to do. And I really love this creepy enemy design, with their gaunt frames and large dead fish eyes. They're like something a Tim Burton character would have nightmares about. Further access to other wings of the school unveils scattered documents that begin forming the greater picture of the underlying troubles Leafmore High School is experiencing. These papers particularly detail an expedition to Africa in which two twins, Herbert and Leonard Friedman, discovered a very peculiar plant, which they brought back with them for further study. Moving through the cafeteria and to the nurses' station, we encounter another rare member of the faculty, the school's nurse, Elizabeth Wixon, who has locked herself in the sickbay after experiencing a psychotic breakdown.
What?
Kenny?
Herbert? That's the freak who kidnapped Kenny?
Maybe. I'm not really sure due to the poor audio mixing in these cutscenes.
Totally whacked.
There's no
No
way to
use
stop
asking
him.
her anything.
We learn of a secret underground tunnel that can be accessed via the theatre, and it's here in the auditorium that we discover the principal's, honestly, very poorly hidden secret.
The principal hasn't aged a bit.
We also uncover evidence of his decades-long human experimentations, and these poor, unwilling test subjects have suffered even worse side effects than those caused by the energy drinks. And yet, even that's not the worst. No, that accursed prize goes to the average Smash Brothers fan residing in the attic. I'm so incredibly impressed with how vile this boss design is. The accursed, groaning maggot nest is an abhorrent yet pitiable sight, shrouding its face as though half protecting itself and half ashamed to be seen in its inhuman state. It reminds me of that scene from Slither. You know, that scene.
Something's wrong with me.
But because this isn't a previously introduced character, this fall from humanity doesn't quite achieve the gut punch it really should.
That thing is gross.
With that bastard out of the way, it's time to finally descend into the basement.
Where's the remote control? Where's that fucking remote control?
Better not forget that emergency brake. Okay, that was a sneaky trick, but I also kinda love it. As I was saying, the basement. It's here we discover the depths of Principal Herbert Friedman's deranged research, as well as encounter his most fiendish of creations. These lumbering octopus-faced horrors are the most fearsome of ObsCure's bestiary. Packing a heavy blow and a ton of health, they can easily grapple your teammate and crush them to death. What's more, is the devs seem to get a real kick out of placing these things in tight spaces, just to really mess with the player. I kinda love that too. Another hidden ladder finally leads us to the dungeon where Kenny has been held prisoner, but wouldn't you know it, it's a trap. But for a guy who's been kidnapping people for the last few decades, he doesn't seem very good at it. The gang is finally reunited, but there's a teensy problem. They've been infected, and have only until sunrise to find the antidote before they'll be transformed into the same vicious monstrosities we've been assisting in euthanasia. They decide to check the sickbay, where we discover Nurse Elizabeth has been attacked and mortally wounded. Even worse, the first aid kit strangely doesn't carry an antidote for the secret experimental serum.
You need to find the antidote.
An antidote? There's an antidote?
In the basement. The lab. The big door.
Turns out Elizabeth was married to Leonard, the principal's twin brother, who mysteriously vanished and maybe isn't quite as dead as the papers say he was.
The basement, but I just came from there. I didn't see a big door.
The other entrance. The gardens.
Another entrance? In the gardens?
The gardens are locked, so we'll need to fetch another key, this time from the ruined and long abandoned dormitory, which is no small undertaking, as the halls are crawling with the recently transformed student body and the foundations are literally falling apart. The other obstacle we'll have to contend with is this god-awful racket that's being passed off as background music. Just listen to this. Small samples of this noise plague the earlier game, but as the narrative grows closer to the climax, so too does this cacophony's insistence to perforate my eardrums. It detracts immensely from the sense of dread conjured by the setting, replacing it instead with a dread for early onset tinnitus. After another fight with the covetous demon, we're rewarded with a map of the basement, a key, and a folder full of exposition, explaining we'll have to gather 4 statues and go through the garden literally to access this big door Nurse Elizabeth was talking about. Plumbing the lowest levels of the labyrinthine tunnels, we discover the control room to the final antechamber, guarded by yet another accursed slovenly creature. But once defeated, we set our 4 statues and unveil what lies beyond. Unfortunately, it seems Professor Walden has arrived at the antechamber first and is holding the principal at gunpoint.
Walden, stop! Give me the antidote or I'll shoot! You've already started to mutate!
But something stirs in the dark, loamy cavern, a great malignant bulk that enacts a swift revenge on the professor. For this is what has become of Herbert Friedman's twin brother Leonard, the serum's first test case of so long ago. He has remained imprisoned out of necessity for decades, while Herbert searched for a cure. But he has been too long in the dark, and undergone such radical changes that there was little that could be done. Now, he rages in the wake of his brother's death, having lost the last companion he had in these wretched depths for so very long, and he aims to take his fury out on us. The battle itself is straightforward. Destroying the root system supporting him causes parts of the roof to fall, pouring down rays of light into the cavernous depths. When enough are destroyed, the entire roof collapses, burying the malformed horror beneath the rubble of what was once the basketball court above, and bringing our story full circle. But no, the cantankerous fiend is set upon taking us with him to the grave, and in a final desperate battle, we must dodge volleys of flailing roots while taking careful aim to finally weaken the beast enough for the rising sun to finally finish it off. Stand retrieved, but wait, there's a second final cliffhanger, and... no, it's actually finished. Why the second fake-out ending? It ruins an otherwise upbeat ending while being too non-committal to be a cliché bittersweet ending either. And what would that looming shadow even be anyway? A third twin? The dawning realization that their high school years are coming to a close and the weight of adulthood is fast approaching? Completing the game unlocks some fun additional rewards, including hard mode, which does what it says on the tin, special mode, which is a slightly different version of the game that includes some alternate outfits, and a behind-the-scenes documentary of the game's development, which I found to be very wholesome. ObsCure sits in a weird place. It's fun, despite its clunky menu controls, and interesting for its creative implementation of drop-in co-op and unique high school setting. There are certainly some odd design choices. Being unable to move or switching menu items can take some getting used to, and there's no quick way to see what's in a character's inventory without them being in the party. But the grotesque creature designs and inspired body horror influences leave a lasting impression. While ObsCure doesn't radically evolve the genre, it does add more ideas than it borrows, and certainly left a lasting influence in the form of using light to combat darkness, which would itself become a central gameplay element to 2008's Alone in the Dark, as well as Alan Wake. Is it worth a play? Absolutely. It's not a very long game, taking roughly 6 to 8 hours to complete. There's little risk of getting frustrated with being lost or stuck, as the characters themselves will help guide you, and there's a lot of fun to be had blasting abominations in this brief glimpse of early 2000s high school life.
Why are you still here? Why aren't you at home?
They're these slimy creatures. They're all over and they're attacking us.
Looks like we got ourselves into a real sticky situation.